The drop in sales, absolutely not due to that. So when I look at sales for Mustang, I look at
What is up, fam? Hope this message finds you all well and in great spirits. Wanted to touch base on what the Ford CEO has to say about these low Mustang sales. Now, I just heard and listened to the Dakota podcast, which is a link in description, where the CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, discusses, among other things, the decline in the Ford Mustang sales numbers, as well as things like ICE and things of that nature. What I do love, and I got to give this podcast credit, they asked specifically, did the tuning give the Mustang being locked at first, did that contribute to the lower sales?
The recent drop in sales of gas-powered Mustangs to the locked ECUs. Do you agree with that? That the locked ECUs are behind the recent drop in gas-powered Mustang sales? And do you have a plan to let people unlock the ECUs and tune the car more easily?
I would say the drop in sales, absolutely not due to that. So when I look at sales for Mustang, I look at globally. In some of our biggest countries like Australia and Sweden, other areas, the Mustang continues to grow because people want a little slice of that America. Everyone wants to do a burnout.
Now, first, before we break that down, I want to talk about what the CEO of Ford, Jim Farley's response was to the question about the lower sales for the Mustang. Now, he doubled down and said, well, it's the number one selling sports car globally. Now, that is a very, and listen, I think Jim Farley is doing a great job. He's trying to be a man of the people, going out and being around and racing and being innovative. But I think that's a real safe way to whitewash what's really happening with the Mustang as a whole. Let me give a metaphor. You know those teams that like lose but have good stats? You know what I'm trying to say? I guess I'll just use the Cowboys as a metaphor. Like, the Cowboys always lose, but Dak Prescott has good numbers. We want to win the game, all right? And Mustang went global in 2015. It's great to have that moniker of we're the best-selling sports car globally, but what's happening right here at home in America is what really is the outlier. I mean, is really what's happening, not the outlier. So, for example, when you say that, you're discrediting what was really happening. And what I mean by that is that we can't like rest our laurels on what's happening in Australia and Sweden. And I looked at some real numbers globally. Like, for example, the Mustang sold maybe 900 units this year in Canada, maybe 300 in Mexico. Those aren't really mind-blowing numbers. Now, I looked up online. I tried to find what the numbers were really globally for the Mustang, and I couldn't find an actual concrete number. It was just sourced, and I'll put the source in the description. You can read more about it, that it was some company who did some kind of index, and it found that the numbers were that it's the best-selling sports car globally. And then even in the own article that Ford put out that it's the number one selling sports car globally, again, I didn't see actual numbers. So it's, again, I'm glad that that metric may be inflated. I don't think it's really telling the true story here, that what we talked about in our previous video where we discussed what's happening and why the Mustang has had back-to-back its lowest sales year ever. And he even addressed that, hey, we're proud of the fact that we're still here, and you know, their competitors like the Camaro and of course the Challenger are no longer there, but it didn't translate to crazy amount of sales. So I listened more to the podcast, and you know, the doubling down on the global sales didn't address really that it's still an expensive product, which is what you all said in the comments, was the Mustang is just way too expensive. Then he went into the fact about the tuning.
As far as the tunability of the vehicle, this is a real dilemma for us, and there's no real easy answer. We want people to modify their cars, but we also have to take quality really seriously, and of course privacy as well. I think he was talking more about the performance of the vehicle, and so our approach would be to give people over time an option to digitally adjust their vehicle from Ford so that we can maintain the quality but still have the user have their own kind of idea of performance, and that's different for everyone. And I think that vision will come to life in the coming years.
Now, there's been a lot of confusion about this whole aspect, because with the tuning, he went into the process that, well, if you tune the car, you can damage its programs and systems. That's a misnomer, because quite frankly, Mustangs and Fords have been tuned for ever. I mean, what I'm saying is you have to allow the user, like the terminology he used as far as like software, users, programs, to authenticate their experience, because they're buying the product and they want to have it to their specifications. That's the risk the user takes, that if they do modify it from the factory, that it may not keep the warranty. That's what you click on, all the acknowledgments, all the stuff you do when you tune the vehicles. I mean, I blew up my 2020 GT500 because I modified it. That's the risk I took. I have modified my Dark Horse extensively. That's the risk we take, but we want to have that freedom to do so, and not being told we're not able to do something what we spend our own money on. And nobody gives me a car for free from Ford. I buy it myself. I pay my payments. I modify them. I share my story. You know, I think the other example that was really, maybe he just misspoke, and that's okay. He said his girlfriend's, his daughter's boyfriend F-150 had camshaft issues because it was a supercharged F-150 that was tuned, but then he said it's an EcoBoost Mustang. Well, the EcoBoost Mustang is a twin turbo normally engine. Some confusion there on what that really meant. We want to buy the vehicle and make it our own. And, you know, I think that my recommendation to the Ford CEO or the people that be is that you have to really look at what's happening right here at home. He went into talking about the real issue with America is that we're lower on blue-collar jobs, manufacturing, you know, first responders. We need technicians, we need mechanics, we need welders, we need plumbers, we need construction workers. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. But when you make the vehicles that should be for those particular demographics, 100K plus, 80K plus, that defeats the purpose. A lot of those blue collar people like things like a Mustang, like a F-150, but at starting prices in the 50,000 range, and for any mods, for any options, you're 60, 70, $100,000. Most trucks now are 80,000 with a little bit of options. That's why we got this STX F-150 that was still 50,000. This is a base 5.0 truck I'm driving, 2024. You know, I think Ford is focusing too much on metrics and what looks good in an article, best-selling sports car globally, and not looking at the hard numbers. Now, what I mean by that is Ford is obviously, they're not focused solely on the Mustang sales. They're focused, and they're always going to be looking at the bigger picture. They're worried about China. They're worried about the EVs. They're worried about BYD. And they want to figure out how to make a cheaper EV for like $30,000 that can be mass produced and can compete with China and make them really a powerhouse for EVs globally. Now, the problem is Ford is still behind Tesla. They're not going to touch BYD because BYD in China has things like the infrastructure. They have government support, like he said. Even though America had government support for EVs for a long time, finally that incentive has gone down. But they're in a real place that they're trying to do this new structure for Ford making EVs now, where it's made a whole new assembly line in like 3 pieces. It'll be all one shot, $30,000, like no options basically. You get one color, one set of options, and kind of a mass-produced vehicle. Now, part of being an automotive enthusiast is, you know, when this economic approach to getting against BYD to make it cheaper, make it more sufficient, I think is a step in the right direction. You want to have a Ford to get back to producing vehicles for people who don't have 70, 80, 100K to drop on an ICE Mustang or ICE F-150, or now the EVs, like, you know, the Lightning, a fully F-150 Lightning is 80K. So let's see how this all shakes out. I think that, and I appreciate, you know, Jim Farley for being a CEO, man of the people. You know, he was a spearhead behind GTD. What I've heard from many different sources is the reason that GTD exists is because he didn't want to just go to the racetrack in a 911 GT3 RS. He was like, what does Ford have to bring? So that's part of the reason that the GTD exists. But he's also one of the reasons why he's trying to get into this new world of Dark Horse and GTD and different nameplates and kind of make a new legacy for the Mustang brand. And he's going to spearhead that potentially into 4-door Mustangs, potentially into like a Safari off-road Mustang, a hybrid Mustang, all-wheel drive coupe Mustang. So we'll see how this all shakes out, but they have to shake it up. Again, we cannot rest on this other metric. Well, we're the best-selling sports coupe car globally. You know, the numbers are the numbers, and it needs more attention. And what's going to happen is just the same way BYD has taken over the EVs, way over Ford. Obviously, Tesla is number 2 now. You know, what is Mustang going to do with this segment? If the opportunity is there to say, hey, listen, our manufacturers, our mechanics, we have a technician shortage, you know, I would incentivize. I know Ford's trying to do that themselves because they have the money, the resources with scholarships and training, but I would just pay more money to our technicians. You know, what is it, $150, $200 an hour, and our techs are seeing like $25 of that, maybe 30, 40 if you have some training. Let's pay them, Ford. Pay our techs, pay the mechanics a very healthy, much better wage, so that can incentivize the young people, instead of just going to college to get a paper degree, which doesn't teach you much as far as your hands are concerned, to go in and get into the field of manufacturing, of making sure that you can build better products, you can weld, things of that nature. Because yes, like he said, AI is cool, but AI is we're not there yet as far as everything being made by AI. Yes, you can, you know, cheat on your math exam with AI, but are you able to do the things that it takes for manufacturing? And right now, we're way behind China. And the other thing that China has compared to America, they have the stronghold on the special minerals, the special rocks needed to make things that are needed for chips and batteries, and they can do it at a much cheaper level. So Ford and Ford CEO, I just don't think they're worried right now. I think the Ford Mustang as itself is kind of on the back burner. It's a nice, that's a nice special project. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They look at it as a loss leader. It's more of a marketing tool. It's more that the Mustang exists because it has a heritage, it has a fandom, it has people that like to just look and enjoy a cars and coffee, go to the track with it. They don't look at it as a powerhouse for sales. But it still exists, and it's going on 60 years plus. So what I would say is, whatever you're doing right now with the Ford Mustang ICE process isn't working. Revisit, like we talked about last video, I'll link it below. Make it cheap, make a cheaper version, make a cheaper V8 rear-wheel drive version that we as a consumers can make. We're gonna mess with it, we're gonna wrap it, we're gonna lower it, we're gonna supercharge it, twin turbo. Let us do that. We don't need you to do that. That's what made the Mustang cool. It was cheap, it was affordable, out of the box, and then us in the aftermarket, us the consumers, us the enthusiasts, us the car community can make it our own, make it faster. We blow it up, so we blow it up. That's not your problem. You know what I mean? And then basically, I'll have my mass-produced vehicle, you know, my cheap F-150 that I'm not going to touch that one. That gets me to work back and forth. And then I have my baby, my Mustang, which I bought for cheap, but I make it my own because I play with it in the garage. I take it to my local shop, and I add a supercharger, I lower it, put some bigger wheels on it, and I'm proud to take that out. That is a recipe for how it should work. It shouldn't be that we don't want a jack of all trades for a $80,000 Mustang. Make a $35,000, $40,000 V8 Mustang, maybe a little bit of options, and then we in the aftermarket, we the enthusiasts, can make it our own. Because what does America like? We like to be individuals. We like to be individualistic. That's why you see Mustangs as probably the most modified car out there. We want to change it up and make it our own. But when you make it everyone only has one choice. That's why there were so many people against having a Whipple only for so long, because Whipple is great. I have a Whipple Mustang. I have Whipple on many Mustangs we built. This truck's going to get Whippled. But when you don't give Americans the option to choose on their own, that's when they feel forced. And when they feel forced, they don't want to do something because they want to have the one big F word, and that F word is freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to buy what they want, and the freedom to have fun the way they want to. We don't want to be told what we need to buy, what we need to spend our money on, and how it needs to happen. So that is what the Ford CEO is saying. I think that eventually he'll understand where we're coming from and he'll get it. But it was a very good podcast. I recommend it's in the link below if you want to hear it for yourself. Ford is focused really heavily on the EV stuff. They're going to double down and reinforce it. Like he said, GM has 14 different models. Ford has like 3 or 4 only, with the Lightning, the Mach-E, and I forget the other one they had that's a EV. But the point is, Ford wants to really get into the EV space. But what I'm saying is, don't forget the Mustang, guys and girls. All right, you guys, I appreciate the support. Please like and subscribe. And also, this video is brought to you by the Shelby GT350 giveaway. If you go to the link in the description, grab some tickets, you'll enter to win the Shelby American GT350 giveaway. All right, you guys, like and subscribe, because you know it never ends. Peace.